our final presenter is somebody who I spoke to, and I just think what she does is so different and so cool. And I'm going to let her explain it. Her name is Alysha Myronuk, and she has Myrony. Welcome, Alysha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here, and it's been amazing to meet everyone else. But yeah, Myrony is a word I've created where it's my irony, and it's the crazy coincidences that happen in life that we can't explain. It's also another word for sign or synchronicity, but it actually has its own definition because it's synchronicity in motion. We may see a sign, but then there's an action we can take when we trust that inner knowing. So, yes, everyone has these Myronic experiences, just not the way I spell my last name, because that's actually how it's pronounced. And so that's Myrony, which I have a podcast. And I'm also creating a movement for people to share their Myronies in addition to their selfies on social media, because Myrony is literally the opposite of selfie.
Right. Oh, fascinating. Can you explain that a little bit more?
I guess the person who's going to be creating this has to have some crazy stories, right? And so my story started 16 years ago when my father was terminally ill, and I was basically engaged and married in 6 days at the in the same hospital I was born in. My dad was in hospice care in the hospital. And so I was actually born, engaged, and married in the same hospital. So if anybody wants to hear this crazy story, you go to my podcast, That's Myrony, and explain this whole story. But I would see these signs that, like, literally the first wedding dress I tried on ended up being the dress of my dreams. The shoes were the last pair of my size. The day before I got married, it was torrential downpour, where the reception was going to be in the courtyard of this hospital. It was such torrential downpour. I was, joking, like, what are you going to do? The only option was, to be in the cafeteria of this hospital. And that's when I truly said, if there truly is a God, he will not take this away from my father. And the next day was one of the most beautiful days I ever witnessed in my life. I'm actually from New Jersey. I'm in San Jose, California now. But it was a California day. If you guys on the East Coast, after a rain like that, it'd be humid, hot, humid, end of August. It was mid 70s, not a cloud in the sky, not a drop of rain. So that's when I started recognizing these signs. And then about 5 years ago, when I was in sales, people would ask, hey, how do you say your last name? I say, it's like ironic with an M. And then I would add, there's a lot of Myrony in my life. And I get a little chuckle. And then again, would see these signs. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is a universal word for everybody. My irony. It's your own personal irony, whatever you want to say. But, it's these signs that we can't explain. And so I really would love to see people share this on their social media. Give another form of content besides just selfies, because Myrony is something so much greater than ourselves.
I love this. I think this is great because there's a lot of signs I've had in my own life where I'm like, that means something, right? Mm-hmm. I guess my question for you, how do you know when you see a sign, right? And then the second part of my question is, then what do you do? Like, when do you know when to follow? Like, what discernment? Like, how do you exercise that?
So one of the biggest things with this is you'll see a sign, and just pay attention to it. Just even acknowledging it, but really then trust that intuitive pull that you get, that gut feeling. Because when you have that gut feeling, chances are there's something you can do in addition to that. So I actually have a really funny Myrony that Elizabeth, you brought up about Instigate AI. I actually know the founder, Mark Cantor. But here's the biggest Myrony. It's actually his birthday today.
Oh my gosh. Happy birthday, Mark. We'll have to tell him we gave him a shout out today.
Yeah. I mean, I was, that's Myrony, right?
Right.
That's a pretty funny little, but so going back to you, Kenya, you'll have this feeling. You'll be like, that's really funny. And then sometimes it's almost like we got to get hit upside the head, and you'll see it a couple of times. But when you start seeing it, but when you really, really become in tune to it, I actually say we discover Myrony and our inner superpower. And that inner superpower, I like to call mine my spiritual spidey sense, but it's that that awareness, that deeper awareness, that when you really become in tune with it, then you start seeing the pieces that connect to our puzzle we call life.
So do you believe in karma?
I do believe in karma. Yes.
Yeah.
And how does that compare with Myrony? I mean, how do those two pieces work together?
Well, I mean, karma is on a much bigger scale. Myrony really is just it's a new way of looking at synchronicity. I think it's a more modern way of saying synchronicity. But why I say it's synchronicity in motion is that I have discovered that when people, and a lot of entrepreneurs will experience a lot of Myronies, because sometimes it's that chance meeting that then ends up being the biggest catalyst.
I think there's no shortage of really unique ideas out there. This is certainly a very unique idea. Angels, we always like to see businesses that are created out of a personal experience, a personal need. I think it's fantastic. I mean, there could be a lot with social media. These types of ideas can really skyrocket very, very quickly. The challenge that you're going to have is, you're going to be a B2C, not a B2B. And that's the same with Catherine and Brianna, is that you're B2C, and that, you're doing business in increments at a time as compared to doing B2B where you can get big contracts. So that's always going to be the challenge for your businesses as each one of you scale.
Well, I just want to add to your comments, Alysha, about entrepreneurs. So Your Heart Law was started as an entrepreneurial endeavor after I left Novartis Pharmaceuticals as the head of intellectual property there. And a lot of the decisions you just don't have time to make or fully research every decision that you're going to make. And so you do have to make a lot of gut decisions. And of course, sometimes you can make the wrong ones. But I think that everyone who's in the early stages of the business has to have some sort of sense or gut or something to move at the speed that they need to move at to make their project work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the strongest things, is that when we can trust our own inner knowing, that's one of the things I always tell people, just trust that. When our mind that decides to play the hamster wheel just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, it's just like, take a moment, sit with your heart and your soul and feel, what is that really saying? And it's really amazing. And when people start becoming more in tune with these signs, you'll just be amazed. Literally, miracles in your life and in others will happen. It's really incredible.
I had a super quick question. How do you train that gut feeling though? Because I hear people say, "Oh, you got to trust your gut." Like, how do you know? Like, I could feel a bunch of things and then still be the queen of overthinking. So, how do you know how to train that, and what does that really feel like when you know what you're supposed to do?
Well, when you're basically, your head is just like spinning, spinning, spinning. But then something deeper inside you will just be like, no, do this, or you're going to. So I'm going to be interested to follow up with you, Kenya, down the line, because I think the funny thing is that once I start sharing about Myrony, people start seeing their Myronies. It's almost immediate. It's really pretty cool. So, just really trusting that inner knowing, that's what you want to listen to.
I had kind of a Myrony. I had put out to the universe that I was getting a cat for Christmas, and I pushed it up a week and I got the wrong cat. So if anybody listens to last week's episode, you'll see what happened. And I actually had to return that cat because the signs were there, and the universe was like, no, you told me to get you a cat this week. So anyway, we did get a cat and we got the perfect cat. But, I really screwed up because I tried to rush something and it wasn't time, right? I didn't look at the signs.
That's really funny. Yeah. So as I say, when I say God, basically my little logo behind me with Myrony has a little winky face that I call Winky. And I say that as God is love with an awesome sense of humor, which includes the universe, whatever anybody wants to, whatever anybody wants to say. But the truth is, it's just recognizing something that's greater than ourselves. The reason why I take the I out of the irony, so it's just Myrony, Myrony, is that it's not about I, it's about we, and it's about something so much greater.
This show is pretty how do you say the word? Synchronistic?
It
And
is.
that I feel like every week for like 100 episodes, the right people have been on and the right conversations have been happening. Don't you, Richard, you and Elizabeth, don't you agree? I feel like it's always such a nice flow.
Well,
couldn't agree more.
I have the word is actually Myronistic. You can add now.
You got to trademark these things, you know? So
I actually am in the process of
all right,
trademarking
good.
all of
We're
this.
glad to hear it.
Well,
You need a good trademark attorney? I could refer one to you.
You know what's really funny? Mark Cantor connected me to my business partner, who's an intellectual property trademark patent lawyer.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, it sounds like you're in good hands.
Yeah,
That's,
that's
the important thing.
well, yeah. So I really feel like right now people are looking inside more. And so really
Because they got no place to go.
right.
I mean,
But where else do you look? But how do you pick people for your podcast? Like if I want to be on your podcast with my weird cat story or whatever, how do you choose who gets to go on?
I ask people if you have a Myrony that you want to share, that your stories, and that's why entrepreneurs definitely, there's so many hills and valleys in what we do. And, I think, yes, that's a cute story, Elizabeth, with your cat, but we need to spill a little bit more than that. But but usually
Don't
when
worry,
I start
she can talk for a whole podcast, no problem.
but yeah, when we start getting into it, people start recognizing, these incredible. So like I have an episode coming out this coming Saturday where she was the sixth, her name's Tamara Weinberg, she was the sixth employee of Mashable. And then because she had actually dealt with postpartum depression and then had a major loss, she's now creating a fragrance line that is meant for mental health and the Myronies that are connected to it. So if you have a story, chances are if you have a story you want to tell, I would love to have you as a guest on my podcast.
Excellent. And that the people can find you at the website. That's Myrony, Myrony.com.
Correct. Yep. And I'm all on social media, Facebook, Instagram. And then anybody who wants to email me can email me at Alysha@that'smyrony. So that's ALYSHA@that'smyrony.com.
Well, that's great. So listeners, if you're interested in sharing your Myronic story.
Yes, it's actually Myronic.
By all means, make sure that you contact Alysha.
Or if you want to hear Myronic stories, listen to her podcast, right?
Yeah,
yes.
I'm intrigued. So this could be a new thing. And I love hearing about all these coincidences because you never know. So thank you very much for joining us. And you're listening to Passage to Profit. Be right back. We've got some more coming up after this commercial message.